It's shiny. It's awesome. It's cool. It's a piece of hardware that I can give for my baby boy.
Porque eu não comi nada antes.
You know, absolutely. Hold on, I'm talking, brother. 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 Hold on, I'm talking, brother.
Hello and welcome back to Hold On, I'm Talking, Brother. My name is Joe Greenwood, and you are listening to our preview of UFC Fight Night, Marlon Vera versus Dominic Cruz. And Tom Ballum, on a scale of shit to really shit, how bad is this card that we're going to be talking about this week?
Nate Landwehr co-main shit, Joe. That's how bad it is.
Well,
plus this fella, David Onanama. I'm hoping you're gonna bring some big details on these guys.
Bro, David Onama owns. He has a standing knockout a couple fights ago. Knocked some guy out against the fence, and he was literally flopping against the cage. Out. Brilliant.
I'm already more hyped. Bring on the pod.
All right, brilliant. Let's not fuck around here, Tom. Let's go into this. Marlon Vera versus Dominic Cruz in the bantamweight division. Title contender fight. Let's just say it, this is banging. What a banging fight this is.
It's a great matchup, Joe. Yep, two top 10 guys. Marlon Vera on the come up, and Cruz after a little bit of a setback. Going back to 2020, losing his fight, of course, to Cejudo, and then that kind of close decision against Mckinney. He's back. He's eyeing the title. It makes sense to match these guys up.
Do you worry for Dominic Cruz in this fight? Because I do a little bit. Because me and you have been kind of long-term Dominic Cruz fans, I feel like. He's turned a lot of people off with the way he talks and his commentary for some reason. I think I can speak for both of us. We love his commentary because of the reasons why people hate it. But do you worry for him in this matchup? Because the old being eaten by the young, that is how this sport works.
I mean, 36 at bantamweight, Joe, that's like Chuck Liddell at heavyweight these days.
These days?
Well, like I'm hearkening back there to Chuck Liddell versus Tito Ortiz.
Oh, the third one.
One of the most disgraceful things I've ever seen matched up. That's how old Dominic Cruz is at bantamweight right now. However, I don't know if he is as diminished as Chuck Liddell. So I think it's unfair to say he doesn't deserve to be in there. Ultimately, he was given the decision against Mckinney. He's beaten Pedro Munoz, a man who was certainly giving Sean O'Malley some trouble, another hot young gun in the division. So I don't know, Joe. I couldn't say that I'm worried. I'm intrigued, is what I am.
I think what gets to me about the Cruz thing, though, is that he is definitely diminished from his best, even though his best years were very limited due to injury. We don't need to go over the story of his injuries. He was out for a very long time. It's well-known issues. What was it, 2 years in total in his peak, in his late 20s, gone.
3 years, Joe. 3 years between
3 years.
2011, coming back in 2014. So between 2011 and 2016, the man fought once.
Was the 2011 fight the Mizugaki fight?
That was back in 2014.
That was the 2014 fight. Oh my god!
Mm-hmm.
And then it was the Dillashaw fight, wasn't it? After the Mizugaki one.
Yeah,
Bro,
he came back and won a split decision.
Yeah, also it's bad when someone's like highlights. They bring up the highlights and he's got like sponsors on his shorts. Like that there was a big gap in his career. Anyway, the whole thing with Dominic Cruz was that he was so far ahead of the game in the past. Mostly down to his footwork. Like, that was the thing that made him most, interesting and kind of made him the champion that he was, with his sort of takedowns that he would throw in there and sort of weird style. I mean, he's one of those fighters where if you just saw a silhouette of him fighting and didn't see, you would know immediately that it was Dominic Cruz. Instantly.
Like, yeah, those also the winging those shots from kind of strange angles. He also throws his punches in quite a unique way. The way it's like a winging. It's not even a hook. It's like a side punch.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because it's almost like his hands are at his waist, sort of as he's dipping and moving, and he sort of dips into his shots, and they come up like almost over his head. It's a very, very, very odd sort of shots that he throws in there, which in theory would then line up to like shots to the body, but can't really remember many Dominic Cruz fights where he worked the body that much. But we're talking about a guy who is past his peak, if honestly, but doesn't mean that he is past his, best, per se. Like, he could still offer a lot to this division. Go on, Tom.
Hold on now. Hold on. Can you point to some evidence when you say he's past his peak? Explain to us why.
The last 3 fights, I would say. Mostly the fact that he has been dropped in his last 4 fights, including the Garbrandt one, but there was a big gap between that and the Cejudo one. But, dropped by Cejudo, dropped by Casey Kenny, is that correct, if I remember correctly?
I remember it was a bruising encounter. Kenny was able to find a home for his hooks in that fight.
Yeah, but, Cruz, I think he's even said that he wasn't really ready for that Cejudo fight. Took it on short notice. Of course, he was going to take that as a title shot. And then the Munoz one, where he got dropped in the first round, Dominic Cruz is a guy who builds on speed and movement. And if we're seeing that his speed and movement is not at the level that it once was, and that he is now getting caught by these guys, surely then that would factor into your thinking then in this, that he could be in trouble here against someone like Marlon Vera, who is a guy who isn't quite... He's a bit of an anomaly within the bantamweight division, in that he's a guy who's kind of have to be outstruck. He actually has a negative strike differential. But what he does do instead is unleash killer blows to his opponents. He's not really one for volume. He's more for the quality over quantity approach to striking, which in theory you're thinking could help Cruz, his sort of dancing in and out movement. But if that speed's gone, those shots that just graze the chin start landing flush, particularly from a guy like Marlon Vera, I think that in my mind's eye I could see these issues for Cruz. Again, 36 years old against a guy who's 29. I know Vera's been around for a while, but still a young dude coming into his best years.
Yeah, I can certainly see what you're saying there. It's probably a fair overview, but I'm not entirely convinced by Chito Vera yet.
What?
Yeah, really, yeah. I'm not entirely convinced.
That's surprising, considering that me and you have been fans of him for quite a while. And you have been very positive on Chito Vera in the past.
Yeah, I mean, in the wider context of when we look at this bantamweight division, all right, and I don't need to start reeling off the names, do I, Joe? But when we just look at the top, the company right now that Vera finds himself in is ahead of him. He's got Corey Sanhagen, Jose Aldo, TJ Dillashaw, Petr Yan, and of course the champ Aljamain Sterling. I'm uncomfortable sitting him in there with those names.
How many of those names do you think he could beat?
Well, I was thinking about that as we go through. It depends what kind of Dillashaw we get, but we know
that was the name I was thinking as well.
Right, because I think Petr Yan puts a whooping on him. We've seen Jose Aldo already. He beats Chito Vera. They've already fought. Corey Sanhagen, I don't think Vera can land a shot on. Now that's a bit brutal. And I think Aljamain would run him over as well. So that's why I'm saying that I just feel a little bit uneasy. How good is he really? And I don't know if we're going to find out this fight against Cruz, but we're certainly going to find out if he's not enough. That's if Cruz is enough.
Right. But if he beats Cruz, then he has to be given the opportunity to show. I mean, we'll talk about that when we talk about Jamahal Hill as well in a few minutes. But go on.
Well, I do have to say now, whilst I'm dumping on Vera and kind of cooling the hype on him right now, I didn't see the Rob Font fight.
Oh, bro, it was one of those where he was outstruck quite a lot. Actually, I think it was by 100+ strikes differential in that fight, but it was a clear 5-round win for him. He battered Font, battered him. His shots were just brutal. And it was one of those where, Vera got outstruck by 100+ strikes, and then you look at their faces at the end of the fight. Font's eyes closed up. This one started to close up as well, and Vera kind of looks the same as he did before. It was a lot of Font working his jab, trying to work in from there. He'd throw, the jab 3-4 times, and then Vera would, land, a huge kick, huge uppercut, big right straight down the middle. He was landing big shots on Font. And it was actually kind of surprising that Font managed to go the distance. Vera even talked about it in his pre-fight interview this week, talking about that fight where it's thinking, I had Font hurt, but I didn't want to rush in. I didn't want to sort of give up my advantage over him. So I'd rather have like worked him over until I could see a clear finish, and I didn't want to rush in to find that finishing shot. So that kind of shows his sort of mentality of like willing to wait, willing to pick and choose his exact moments of when he's going to try and finish them. But it's whether you get that opportunity against Dominic Cruz, and it's whether the old Dominic Cruz is back, and how much you buy into that. And it's hard for us to really say, considering his last few performances. I mean, I did think he beat Pedro Munoz. I did think he beat Casey Kenny. But there was just these things and moments where I'm like, against a Sandhagen, against Piotr Jan, I would not fancy Dominic Cruz in those fights.
No, there's no question about that. I mean, if we come back after a Cruz win and we talk about his next matchup, that's when I'll start worrying for him. Because then you do enter that killer's realm. Rob Font is a man who's been found out to be outside of that killer's realm, not because of the loss to Vera, but we knew that already after the loss to Aldo. So what I want to see is a matchup for Chito Vera that shows, does he belong at the very top?
Well,
but anyway, Joe, how do you see this one going if you can't get through Cruz?
I'm going to go with Marlon Vera. I'm going to go with the Marlon Vera win. I think because of his approach, I would not go for a knockout win. I think I could see him losing the first round. You know, he does pick up over time. I mean, you remember the Frankie Edgar win where Frankie won the first round and was actually winning the second round until Vera started to turn it in that round in his favour before getting a brutal head kick knockout. So yeah, I lean towards Vera. In fact, I favour Vera in that fight. Tom, what about you?
Well, Vera, he is the matchmaker's favourite, reasonably convincingly so. You can get 3-1 on Dom Cruz to win the fight. There's something tickling me, Joe. I think it could be a renaissance performance for Dominic. Really? I'm free. I got my free license now. It's not a main event. It's not a main card. I mean, so I'm going to throw some wild card prediction out there. I'm going for a Dominic Cruz win by decision.
Wow!
Outpointing him, dipping and weaving, winging big hooks, not doing much damage, but kind of jogging away.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, what I want is, I want this to be the best Dominic Cruz, and I want, if Marlon Vera is going to win, I want him to be the best Dominic Cruz. I don't want to come out this the other side going like, well, whatever. I want to, as you're saying, next week we're coming back on this podcast on Tuesday, and I'm like, give me Marlon Vera versus Aljamain Sterling or something. I mean,
I tell you what, Joe, if Cruz could go and put a dominant win over Vera, you'd have to catch a bit of hype, wouldn't you? You'd have to, you'd be animated.
Particularly then if Dillashaw beats Sterling for the title, you'd be crazy to not go with Cruz Dillashaw too.
Oh, I think we know Dana couldn't resist that.
Yeah, I rewatched that first fight not that long ago, and that is honestly one of the most masterpiece fights I've ever seen. Like, those two are incredible. Dillashaw in losing that fight is one of the best losing performances I've ever seen. Really, really is. Sorry, I just wanted to hype that up. Tom, please continue.
Well, it's good to have a little bit of hype, Joe, because now we're going to dump over the rest of this shit show. Now, I'm scrolling through the matchups here, and I'm trying to think, where do I begin? I think I'll begin by passing it over to you, Joe. There's nothing that's catching my attention. You mentioned David Onama.
Onama?
I mean, come on, man. You got Nina Nunes on the prelims.
I mean, the one that popped in my mind, and I said this last week, was the Ariana Lipski-Priscilla Cachoeira fight.
Oh, Lord.
Where, bro, that is stinky. Devin Clark versus Azamat Murzakanov. I think this is at light heavyweight. I'm not sure.
It is a light heavyweight.
It is at light heavyweight, yeah. I mean, this Murzakanov is 11-0. Oh, this is the guy who got the last second knockout win. Yes. In his debut, Murzakanov, I'll have to bring up who he fought. But I remember this. He was getting absolutely pieced up, and then he landed a hellacious knockout. Undefeated fighter. Blooming heck. I'll have to bring up his record in a second. But yeah, I agree with you. This is worse than the fight night card we just had, the Hill Santos one, isn't it, in terms of quality of fighters? Tafon Nchukwi was the guy he knocked out with a flying knee in the third round.
Good stuff. More flying these, and you might get some more name recognition, and you might get some airtime on Hold On, I'm Talking Brother. But until then, we're moving on, Joe. I'm not gonna stoop to discuss any more. Like, this is rubbish. This is
rubbish.
Absolutely rubbish.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, around the corner we will have UFC 278, but we're not going to get into that yet. That'll be next week. You'll have to rejoin us for that. What is the most exciting fight on that card, though, Joe?
278.
278.
Are you talking about the juicy middleweight matchup between Luke Rockhold and Paulo Costa? That's the fight that you're most hyped for, isn't it?
That's fun. That's a lot of fun. That's great matchmaking. I mean, can't justify it in any rankings or any, form basis.
Why not?
I mean, Rockhold he's in some rocky waters. Rocky.
What, you mean like hellacious comeback? He's going to get another title shot? Screaming at Adrian. Is that what we're going to get? We're going to get that sort of moment from Rockhold.
I mean, anyway, it's fantastic. It's fantastic matchmaking. I am really excited about that. But there's some serious competition in Jose Aldo versus Merab. And, of course, finally, Leon Edwards, the Brit, getting the rematch against Kamaru that we've been waiting for. We've been crying out for.
Yes,
UK
indeed.
fans. So tune in next week, guys, to follow us on that. I think now we're going to take a little look at last weekend, though, because we did have some fun fights on the last fight night.
Yeah, I mean, this was the first UFC card since the Bisping Rockhold card in Australia, where every single fight ended in a finish. And everyone was very excited about that. And then I watched the card, and I'm like, this card was absolute dog shit. Like, what are people watching here? Brian Battle getting a knockout that people were excited for? What? Like, people, come on, have some standards here, for fuck's sake. Like, or am I being harsh here, Tom? Was this card actually good?
Well, I think we can say that we weren't excited. We're not excited about this weekend's card coming up. But if it ended up finishing in the same way that this one did, we would be more positive about it. I.e., it defied expectations. Some other good news did emerge from the card as well. Sam Alvey, he's been cut, Joe. He's finally gone.
Smiling Sam. Oh, speaking of Smiling Sam, yes, he was cut. Broken jaw, which is not good. I mean, when that's starting to happen and you're 9 fights without a win, that was it 10 or something crazy? He
took on kind of meme status in the social media because he was dodging the draft, dodging being cut from the UFC for so long. Lots of speculation about Dana, one night in Las Vegas, what happened there, something in one of the private poker rooms. Sam Alvey got involved, but yeah, he's finally gone. I think that is for the best. Glad to move on from that one. But on the main card, I thought there was some fun stuff, Joe.
Hold on. Can I go back to Sam Alvey just quickly?
Of course. The last word on Sam Alvey.
Right. He had an interview with Ariel Helwani this week.
Don't tell me that he wants to come back. Don't.
No. 2 things. He's going to keep fighting, but there's one thing that would stop him from fighting and that he would quit and do that immediately. Do you want to take a guess at what that would be?
The Rapture.
Pro wrestling. That's his true first love, is pro wrestling, and that is something that he would be interested in going into. I mean, particularly if your record's like that, you're not going to be a world champion in pro wrestling either, because you can't make the business look that bad, brother. We can't be having that. And the other thing is, he said be interested in boxing. Did you see who he called out to box?
Jake
Tom?
Paul.
Yes,
Let's
indeed.
go.
He did indeed call out Jake Paul. That is apparently he sparred them for their boxing matches. Was brought in for a couple rounds. Said Logan Paul was a very nice young man and that Jake Paul was a bitch. So trying to build that promo, brother. Anyway, let's move the fuck on, because that's literally, I think, the last time Sam Alvey will ever be said on this podcast. Let's talk about the main event. Jamahal Hill finishes Thiago Santos. Which one of us made that prediction, Tom? It was me. That's who predicted that. Thank you.
It was in good form. In good form you are.
Yes,
when
indeed.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Do you feel like... I felt like how you feel about Marlon Vera in the bantamweight division, about Jamahal Hill in the light heavyweight division, of like, he has now earned the right to fight one of those top 5 guys, and I really worry about him fighting some of these top 5 guys. Like Ankalaev, Blachowicz, Glover. You know, you're getting taken down by Thiago Santos, brother. Glover Teixeira is licking those lips like that.
I think so.
I'm a little bit worried for him. I think he's earned the right, and I thought it was a tremendous performance. I did have him losing the fight up until then. I had Santos winning 2 of the first 3 rounds. Yes. First and the third. The third is when he was spamming those takedowns relentlessly and then gassed himself. But yeah, that was my main feeling of this fight. And also my main note here of sloppy slugfest. That was my main feeling on this fight.
I mean, I know Jamahal will be upset to have his name associated with a sloppy slugfest, but it was the making of a man. You know, he came through some hardship. I did ask some questions of him on the preview, and I mean, we did find out that Glover would likely manhandle him and tear him limb from limb because it was interesting, this kind of takedown approach from Thiago Santos, pretty much acknowledging that he can't hang with the young guns anymore, that he's lost that explosive edge that took him so far. Now, of course, in the absence of explosive athletic ability, one needs to have some sort of technique. And in shooting for takedowns, I think Thiago Santos was acknowledging that his technique as a striker is lacking. And we did see glimpses of that. But, Joe, as you say, I do recall now, I also had it 2 rounds to 1 before it went the way it did. I mean, the first round, I think Thiago Santos was kind of beat him on the feet, and then it was in the third round where he implemented that wrestling game, and piece by piece, slowly but surely, he kind of started to grind down Jamahal Hill. To begin with, Hill was having he was reasonably comfortable kind of shrugging him off. But Santos, he kept chugging away. I thought, hold on a second. Yeah. Is he going to do it? Is it working? And the look on Hill's face going in after the end of the third round, he was puffing, Joe. He was in some deep water. Yeah,
he was struggling. He was really, really struggling. Luckily for him, though, Thiago Santos was also struggling as well. And the shots that started to put him away, like Santos was actually almost like moving away. I think not so much that the strikes are like knocking him out, or he's getting those sort of like blanking out for a moment. He's more like, oh god, I'm so tired, like I can't take this anymore. And the end of the fight, I mean, that could have been stopped 10 shots earlier, in my opinion. The Herb Dean special, but it was a dogged performance from Hill. We saw that he can go into that fourth round and still get a finish and still keep fighting and still keep going despite that feeling at the end of the third round. Again, I do worry if he fights. I mean, even Blachowicz with takedowns. I think Blachowicz would probably take him down. And Ankalaev definitely would as well. And those guys on top of him, I'm a little bit worried for Hill, but he needs that test. He's earned that test.
He certainly has. Yeah, he certainly has. And I think you're likely right in how you see those fights at the top of the division. They might go. Hopefully, he can get some intensive work done. Now he's seen the holes in his game. The Thiago Santos, the way that he went down, that he kind of succumbed to fatigue. You know what he really reminded me of? He reminded me of another Brazilian, a Brazilian who also falls victim to wrestling. Although Thiago Santos, of course, fell victim to his own wrestling and gassing himself out. It was Edson Barbosa after being pinned to the mat.
Oh, yes.
You know when he just starts like lurching from side to side, and every shot is kind of magnified, and like that like adrenaline dump is there, and
and also like he just gets demoralized as well. So it's just like he's not even like trying to push through, and so this shot's almost like landing on like a rag doll, basically. Like it's just it's not a good look for him, is it?
Well, I mean, Santos, he was rumbling, he was rocking and rolling, and not in the Taito Ivasa way, more in the just totally gassed, and any shot could put him away. It was a bummer for Thiago Santos. I mean, he fought okay, but I don't have any rebuttal to what you said about him, before the fight.
Just like,
is it the end?
No, it's not the end. It's just he should just not be fighting guys in the top 10, and he shouldn't have been fighting Hill, to be honest. Like, when you've had this many losses, or you've had losses to these guys that are highly ranked, maybe you should be fighting guys that are ranked like 13, 14, 15, maybe even unranked. You know, like a Dustin Jacoby or something along those lines. You know, start to build yourself back. Anthony Smith
Dustin Jacoby's a killer. Don't sleep on Justin Jacoby.
I'm not sleeping on him, but he's not a ranked fighter. Like, this is 14th. Like... he is now. Okay. But, like, Anthony Smith was afforded, you know, Devin Clark, Ryan Spann, all these other fucking J-Brones, right? After... You know, no offense to Jimmy Crute, but, like, you know, he's afforded that after, like, losing to, was it Rakic that he lost to? Why wasn't Santos afforded the same thing? Does he just need this main event? Like, does he need to fight in main events? Why is he fighting in main events all the time? Give him a 3-round fight against, I don't know, Ryan Spann. But, like, I don't want to watch Ryan Spann. But, like, you know, Da Un Jun or something, you know, him. Give me something like that.
I tell you, I think, though, Joe, I think this sums everything up. Now, when you said the name Ryan Spann, a little part of me worried for Santos. And then you said that Jung, and I felt, oof, he's a big lad.
Yeah.
He's a big lad. I don't know. It was sad. He's gone. His knees have gone, Joe. He's lost his edge. He doesn't carry that threat. It's hard because he put it all on the line for the UFC. He went all the way to the belt. Not the most rational decision. He didn't prioritize his future well-being. The sport damn well won't do it. The UFC damn well won't take care of him. And so it's really upsetting for me to see this. I have to call it what it is. It's a decline. You know, he's gone. He won't be the same again. And I don't know what matchups to make for him. But he's only gone down to rank 9, Joe. So you're in Krylov territory. Yeah. Reyes.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
This is it. Volkan? Where's Volkan?
Volkan is 8. He's 1 ahead. Now, I think Santos has to fight further down.
Unranked, I think. I think unranked. Like, he should be afforded the chance to at least end his UFC run in, you know, some kind of positive way. Because, like, you know, people talk about Jones Gustafsson of like, oh, Gustafsson's the guy that pushed Jones to the limit. But it was Santos. Santos was the first one to really push Jones. Like, really, really do it. And, like, he actually got, one of the judges gave him the fight. And it was, like, this real incredible moment of, like, this guy absolutely blew his body out. His limits were, he went past it, did the most one of the most incredible performances that we've ever seen, came up short, and showed that one of the greatest fights of all time was very much human. And this is his reward, is, you know, getting jobbed out in main events against guys who are always, that are going to just beat him, really. And now he's getting finished. Yeah, not a good look.
Well said, Joe. I couldn't add anything else. Like, he gave us one of those great sporting moments, and he will always have credit for that on Hold On, I'm Talking, Brother.
Yeah, one of the great underdog fight performances. You know, it's just something that really sort of, I don't know, puts the hair up on your fucking arms. Do you know what I mean? When you're thinking, like, he absolutely emptied the jug, and, well, this is what he's rewarded with. Speaking of heartbreak, Vincente Luque gets finished by Geoff Neal. Bro, I was heartbroken. Like, I was watching and going, like, Geoff Neal's really fucking good, isn't he? Like, I forgot how great this guy is. And then, why did he have to do it against Luque? Why couldn't he do it against, you know, Bilal Muhammad or something? Like, why does one of our boys have to be sacrificed here?
Yeah, absolutely. Standout performance for Geoff Neal with the finish over Luque, a man who cannot be finished, a man who will not succumb. He tried his normal style, Luque, of just marching forwards anyway. He tried it quite a few times in the first round in particular, and Geoff Neal would constantly land that left straight through, and it was finding it home all day. By the end of the first round, Luque really had enough of that. He suddenly had been kind of stayed in place. In the second round then, Luque kind of composed himself a little bit, and it was pretty even. There was a bit of concern in the corner of Geoff Neal. What I think was going on there, Joe, is that basically Neal was kind of taking the fight a little bit to Luque, and that seemed to not work so well for Geoff. Now, very interesting in that I don't know how much we learnt about Geoff Neal here, because I think Luque, actually, in hindsight, was a perfect matchup for him. A man who would just march on to shots.
He obliged the best part of Geoff Neal's game. Geoff Neal drew him into that left hand and then circled off nicely from there. Would sort of bait Luque into throwing and then circle off the other way, pulling him into his power hand. It was really, really well done. And that was the word that popped up in my head as well, is that he was pausing Luque. Luque was like, and nobody really ever does that to him. Like, that is the fighter that Luque is. He is marching forward through your whatever you're dishing out. And I think it's the weird thing in that second round, yeah, as you say, that Neal started to move forward and Luque had more success. I gave that second round to Luque, so I had it 1-1 going into the third. I'm like, well, here we go. Luque's going to start, it's the tide has turned. And then Neal, rocks Luque massively, has him up against the cage, and then unloads, 10 left uppercuts in a row? As if he was like just fucking around with like a heavy bag or something. So I'll just spam the same shot over and over and over again. Like, horrendous technique, but was just landing on Luque. Luque just couldn't get him away. He was swarming all over him. He wasn't able to move, and then finished him quite incredibly. Geoff Neal, after having some problems, he had the health problems. I think he almost died, didn't he? Had pneumonia as well. Had a couple setbacks, couple dodgy performances. I remember the Wonder Boy one was particularly frustrating, but then Wonder Boy does bring that out of people. But he's back. What do we think next for Geoff Neal, Hands of Steel?
Well, he takes on the mantle now. He takes the torch against the wrestler. Yes. Wrestler heavy, top of the division. He becomes the great bright hope. Luque, of course, had already unfortunately been extinguished by Belal Muhammad. So I guess fresh blood. Our hopes are riding with you now, Geoff. He's jumped up 5 places in the rankings. He's up to rank 8 now. Mm-hmm. So, Joe, this is who's ahead of him. Sean Brady, Belal Muhammad, Gilbert Burns, Khamzat Chimaev, Leon Edwards, Colby Covington, and Kamaru Usman.
Where's Jorge Masvidal?
He is 1 rank behind him with Luque on 9. Yeah,
wow, Masvidal's not getting that ranking privilege, is he? Like, he's been dumped down those rankings.
Rightly so. Maybe,
you know what? Like, you should have done the Conor thing of not fighting, and then he would have stayed higher up the rankings.
Yeah, Joe, I tell you one other danger zone that Geoff Neal has entered there. He's jumped ahead of Shavkat Rakhmonov.
Oh my God! I know that Neal's called for the Burns fight, although apparently I think the UFC are working on Burns versus Masvidal as their next fight, which would be quite something. I'd just wait out for the winner of that one. I don't bother with, literally only fight some of those guys if absolutely necessary. I mean, could he beat Belal though? Is he more? Does he have a bit more output for Belal
than Luque? Oh, yeah. This is it, Joe. No, I would love to see him beat Belal, but yeah.
I mean, the good thing, I guess, for us is that Belal is facing Sean Brady at UFC 280. So I guess one of those wrestlers will be knocked off out the way. But then it's like, great, then you have to face the other wrestler. So, and then I guess Khamzat's going to be fighting for the title. Well, he's got Nate to walk past first, and then he's going to be fighting for the title. But it's dodgy territory. Yeah, I'd say try and face Burns, probably. Or if you can, Masvidal.
Joe, you're not telling me you think Geoff Neal beats Burns, are you?
I'd say it's the most favourable fight out of those ones, but even though that is bastard hard, I will.
That is the UFC on hard mode. I mean, there is the likes of the Leech, Michel Pereira.
Oh, Pereira would be a good one.
Yeah.
Do you reckon all these strikers are just going to be like, can we just face each other and maybe we'll get a title shot that way?
It's two leagues. I mean, I think we support that. I want to see some of these guys kind of cancel each other out, which we will. I think Brady versus Bilal, that is great. Maybe they can fight each other a few times.
Oh, come on, man. Why are you shitting on Sean Brady so much? Like, I like a bit of Sean Brady. He's got like a, real dog ugly style, real unfavoured by people. I like it.
Right, Joe, let me tell you about someone who doesn't have... Well, it is an ugly style, actually. I was going to say someone who doesn't have a dog ugly style, but good Lord, Muhammed Usman is not well-rounded in all facets of the game. Now, this first round against Zach Pauga... By the way,
my main note was Pauga's. Wow, I quite like this Pauga. I'm liking some of these striking combinations.
Absolutely, seemed to be the lighter man, certainly the faster man, and Usman just looked absolutely dreadful. I was all set, going, for the break in the first round, going to the second, just absolutely dumping on Usman. Like, this is such a shame. He just needs to, everything's there for him. He's Usman's giant brother.
Yeah.
And he looks like a handful, like a terrifying man. Like everybody's behind him. You got Kamaru there. He must be explaining something about wrestling. He must be telling him something about fighting. I know. I've heard that Usman
You've heard,
somehow
not seen.
No, I certainly haven't seen, but I did hear. I think that he said that in some wrestling meetup somewhere that Kamaru finished third and he was picked second. Now, look, Joe. At the end of this first round, it was such a poor round for Usman. I was saying, like, surely. When your brother is Kamaru Usman, possibly the greatest of all time, a man entering that conversation, he must have explained something about how to win fights. Yeah. He must have said how to get through these moments. And what he told him, Joe, it's just swang and bang, baby. Let those hands fly. Oh, my God. So Pauga steps in with a jab. And there it is. Sweet check hook. I think it was a left hook.
Left hook,
if I'm not mistaken. Good douched Pauga. Sent him to the shadow room. And then what a celebration, Joe.
Everything like that. It was. By the way, Pauga, I thought the striking was very good. And then he did that the Juliana Pena dipping jab. And then he just stayed there. He had a look. And then Usman went in. Took him out. Brilliant finish. He is the ultimate fighter winner. A long, glorious lineage of winners of that, including Brian Battle, and who was that dickhead who was stamping his foot the other week? He won the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah.
That fella. Yeah, man. Do you know what my main note and takeaway was from this fight as well? Was how big is Kamaru? When he was stood next to his brother, they were the same height and basically the same width as well. It was pretty.
Which brings us on to the next question: how ineffective is USADA?
Yeah.
Because that man's nipples were sending a flare. They were sending a signal. They were so pointy. They were saying, "Fuck you, USADA."
I was listening to Jack Slack podcast the other day, and he brought up a good point. Isn't one of the Usman brothers a chemist?
Okay,
I believe that's the case. The Walter White part of the family.
Well, he should be very proud because he has created some stunning model specimens. Now, Joe, can we talk about that celebration from Muhammed Usman?
Oh, bro, that was scary. That was intense.
Holy shit! Bro, his
back.
His
back was incredible. That's in the Ricky Simone level of back, wasn't it? Like, that was...
Yeah, that's hallowed territory with Ricky Simone. But, yeah, scary man. Not just in a, let's glorify him because he's a great fighter and he's big, but actually, oh, shit, that man is unhinged. And he's had some serious trauma in his life.
Bro, he was emotional.
Yeah, Joe, some bad stuff's happened there, and there should be somebody watching him and his family just to make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, hopefully.
Because it wasn't far from the surface, and if there wasn't a referee and, security ready to come in, I think Pauga might not be with us anymore.
Yeah.
Because there was no need for the ground and pound. Now, it's up to the referee to step in there and stop it. Usman, he's full of
something.
Energy, yes. Which he needs to get out.
Yeah. Can't you buy that at Boots? Energy, and then G-E-E. Anyway, it's... Yeah, I mean... All right, let's ask the question. If Muhammed Usman fights Sergey Spivak, who's winning that fight?
Wow, the Spiv, Joe.
The Spiv, bro.
The Spiv is a killer.
Bro,
he's a killer.
Trips, those tricks.
Yeah, he just smushed Sakai. Sakai's had a reasonable run in heavyweight. He's got some wins to his name, but it's just no match for those heels. Those just tilt off balance, dump you on your back, climb all over you, and pound you out.
First trip was inside, second trip outside leg, so he was crossed both legs as well. Just mauled him, and then chaining takedowns together. Something that's so rare actually in MMA full stop, but particularly at heavyweight. And also the striking much improved from Spivak. That jab, stinging jab. Bro, the Spiv is coming. He is coming. He is much improved. Much improved. And, I mean, there's some guys at heavyweight who are above him in the rankings who I think should be avoiding this guy at all cost. Tai Tuivasa does not want that rematch, I don't think.
Well, this does highlight the kind of absurdity of it all. Now, the Spiv. I'm going to say it. Sergey Spivak, you've reclaimed your name. Sergey, you're ranked 12 right now. You're a new ranking, and yet you've got Tai Tuivasa, who he's already smushed, who's going to be fighting for an interim belt.
Well, basically, he's fighting for
bizarre world.
Yeah, well, he's fighting Garn, and that's a number one contenders fight in the main event in Paris, in the UFC's first ever event in Paris. And yet, since that loss, Tuivasa has somehow left the UFC, come back, overtaken Spivak to this position. It's just that Spivak looks the way he does, doesn't drink alcohol from a shoe, and doesn't really speak much English.
Hold on. That's changing as well, Joe.
God bless him.
What was it? 9 fights in UFC, no bonus.
Bro, he deserved a bonus. He deserved a bonus. He didn't get one for that performance either, which is, again, just disgraceful. He absolutely smashed Sakai. And actually, I feel like, I'm looking now at the card, that's probably, outside of Luque, the most legitimate win you could get on that card. Mm-hmm. Don't you think? Like, no offense to Juliana Miller. Did you watch the women's flyweight tough final?
Yeah. I watched the end of it.
What, the DX crotch chop in her face?
Yeah.
Like,
yes,
bro. That was that was Brighton on a Friday night sort of fighting. That was shit. Let's be real. That was absolute shit. And I don't think being 3-1 now in the UFC is the best base for MMA. Like that's not a good ranking there, or good amount of fights to be going into the UFC with. Let's talk about very quickly Terence McKinney against Eric Gonzalez. McKinney, always fun, never a chore.
Another first round finish, Joe. Another first round finish. That's the way to go. That's the way to get some hype behind your name.
Calls out Paddy Pimblett.
Yeah, that's not happening.
No, it's not
happening. Just yet. No. But Joe, the other guy, I don't know.
No.
With a jabron to that fella.
Yeah, so, I was impressed.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Right, let's talk about the news. There's been 2 retirements since we last spoke, Tom. Let's talk about the one that was announced yesterday, I believe. Uriah Hall retires from MMA. With a run in the UFC, a record of 10 wins, 9 losses. Put it together at times, has some decent wins. I don't know if you'd call the one over Weidman really a win, but, it's been given as a win. Musasi, I think, is probably the other significant win.
Musasi, but we must remember that was avenged.
Yeah,
that was like lightning struck once.
Yes. Then Musasi smushed him. guess one of the great examples of just unrealised potential, or was it just mental stuff that never really got him over the line? Uriah Hall. I always think of the famous knockout on The Ultimate Fighter, that spin kick, and I watched it again today. More time is spent in that famous clip on the aftermath of watching that guy dying there in the cage and everyone silently staring and being quite upset, and you can see that Uriah Hall is upset as well. More time is spent on that than the actual knockout, and I think that kind of sums up Uriah Hall's run quite well, of just like something spectacular but just something kind of off. There's always something quite off with his run, even to the point where he lost the Ultimate Fighter finale against Kelvin Gastelum, if I remember correctly, when he was supposed to just be like, this is the next guy, he's going to fight Anderson Silva and win the title. He did eventually beat Anderson Silva in his last fight in the UFC, but what do you think it was? Do you think it was the mental side, or do you think he just was never that good?
I think he was never that good.
Really?
I think he was never that good. Yeah, I think he was a man who, again, had that just real explosive athletic edge. And so, he had moments where that would come to the fore, but I think the fundamentals were just never really there.
Yeah. Never really developed his game, did he? Never really added new wrinkles.
One thing I will say for him, you already mentioned it there, Joe, in that, coming off The Ultimate Fighter, he was supposed to be the man, and he spent pretty much his whole career at the top of the division, or let's say in the top 10 at least.
Yeah, he was ranked for most of his run.
Yeah, and of course in the process of being ranked, and as the UFC has evolved around him, real fighters, well, I say real fighters, but you look at like the last loss to Muniz, for example, or the loss to Strickland even, as like a pure striker, or I don't know if I can call Strickland that after his loss to Pereira, but a man who's got a well-developed striking fundamentals game, at least if you remove the kickboxing element of MMA. Someone who can jab, really put it on you. Muniz, of course, a jiu-jitsu specialist. Like, what I'm saying is the sport evolved around Uriah, and he couldn't keep up with it. So a checkered run, but a man that most people will remember for those explosive moments.
Yeah. I always will remember that knockout from The Ultimate Fighter, but again, it's always going to be tainted with that thing of him saying sorry to him, and it's just like, yeah, of course he's going to say that because he's a human being, but it's like there was that thing just missing from him, wasn't there? Just that kind of edge, that sort of, and also the fact that, as I mentioned, his game didn't really change. Maybe he was never that fully committed to really evolving his style and thought like, well, I'll just get by on these skills and hopefully I can put a run together on this. Or I don't know. I just that's the main thing for me.
Yeah, well, he leaves with 19 fights in the UFC, and I think it's time. Yeah,
I don't know what else he was going to do, apart from getting smashed by a boy, Joaquin Buckley. But that's what was waiting for him, because he was a sitting duck in those rankings, wasn't he? Like,
yeah, he's one of those easy marks that we would come to time and again.
By the way,
who was the other retirement?
James Krause retired.
Oh, really?
Yes, James Krause retired. Again, speaking of Buckley, the matchup we never got. Gutted about that. Gutted. He retired. I mean, he was going into coaching already. Coached Moreno in the Cara France rematch for the interim title the other week. But the interesting thing about this, that he announced his retirement, talked about his coaching and whatnot. Do you want to know how he makes most of his money, Tom? It's not only fans.
Tell me. Yeah, okay.
He makes it mostly betting on MMA.
Oh no, isn't it that he people will call him up for tips? No, I think I picked up on
tips as well, and also
as
a tout, and also making his own bets, which is a bit dodgy for a coach to be doing, don't you think?
What, betting on the weaknesses of his own fighters, like what he hasn't prepared his lads for.
Yeah.
He's always been a bit of a conundrum because he's been pretty effective. Whenever I've seen him fight. Definitely, he is a man who has those fundamentals down. I think actually, just flicked over to his record now, Joe. I mean, this is a man with 7 wins out of his last 8 fights.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it was. Why? Maybe it was just the training camps. You just didn't want to do it.
I think it's the rise of the buck, Joe. I think fear is what it is.
He knew he had to face him. He knew he had to face him, and just once he heard that Buckley promo, which I will be cutting into right now, he didn't want any part of that.
But, you know, it's other dudes out there that I want to fight who talking that nonsense, and I really want to give it to them. Because when I heard them, the referee can't save him. And y'all know who I'm talking about.
Who are you talking about?
Yeah, I know who I'm talking about. Look up my name on YouTube. You will see him. He the only person talking stuff. I don't need to give his name out. Just do your homework, and you know who I'm talking about. Fight Island, January 23rd.
I know who it is. It's James Krause. I just wanted to hear you say it.
You can say it. I ain't going to say his name.
Listeners, thank you for joining us. Contact us at holdonbrother69@gmail.com. Pass this podcast on to your friends and family. Like, subscribe, rate, review, do whatever you want. Tom, thank you so much for joining us, or joining me. Listeners, have a great weekend, and goodbye.